Hello everybody, and welcome back to Doki Literature Club. Let's just go ahead and hop right into Reflection Part 1. Because, like I said in the last video, I need to kind of hurry up and get these done, so that way I don't have to rush through when I'm trying to get this done and then pack to move out. Anyway, am I bothering you? No. Okay, just checking. It's hard to tell since you always look so into it when you're reading. It makes me scared to interrupt. Well, it's within my expectations to be interrupted when I read here. It's mainly when I'm by myself that I don't like it. That makes sense. I guess if you're here in the first place, then you're more ready to socialize, even if it means a little bit of prodding. It's not so bad to be social if I let others do the work, so it can be healthy to put myself in a social environment every now and then. It's mostly difficult when I don't know anyone, or there are too many people, or everyone is being too silly for me to keep up with. Yuri glances across the room at Sayori and Natsuki. Sayori has her head cocked back and her mouth open, trying to catch pieces of a cookie that Natsuki is lobbing into the air, but the pieces keep bouncing off her face and hitting the floor. Maybe I should say something. No need. They just ran out of cookie. What a waste. It really is a waste of a cookie, what the hell. They've become really good friends, haven't they? I'm happy. Sayori seems particularly good at making that happen. But the two of them are both on the energetic side, so I suppose it works out well. Yeah, come to think of it, you and I haven't had many chances to talk one-on-one, have we? Though that may be partially my fault, since I'm supposed to be the one engaging club members. Not at all. I've probably formed a habit of drawing minimal attention to myself. The responsibility is equally on me, at least to dismiss. Well, what about during times like lunch? Do you meet up with friends? I just read. Oh. But I like it that way. It feels nice to be carried off again after a morning of classes. Do you always read fantasy? Oh, not always. I suppose it's all I've read recently, but only because I'm in the middle of this series. There are to this one. I guess those long books suit you well, since you spend so much time reading. Well, fantasy may be my favorite, but after that, I'm more or less indiscriminate to genres. I'll read anything with depth and maturity. Oh yeah? Even like romance? Well, that sense of romance in them. Oh come on, Yuri, you know what I mean. Monica lowers her voice. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, so I won't tell anyone if you do too. Maybe. Middle school. I was really lonely, and people were mean to me a lot. So it kind of felt like, please don't make me think about the past. Sorry, super curious. You should totally pick out a romance novel to read. That would be so much fun. Absolutely not. Really? Even if it was us? Try asking the same, like Natsuki. Ouch. Sorry, I swear I didn't mean that. Well, I guess it was my fault for pressing you. I'm like that for things in my past too. You know, things I feel too embarrassed to re-experience. There's nothing wrong with growing out of things. It happens to everyone. For instance, Natsuki's interest in manga of how intense I use my own interests. Makes me think that she'll likely grow out of it too. Hey, were you talking about me? No, we were just talking about how our interests have changed over the years. When did you get into manga? Years ago, I guess. I was already sort of into it, but I wasn't really going hard until then. Yeah? What was it that inspired you more into it? I don't know. I guess. It was after I discovered a series I really liked. Yeah, I was just like really fed up with a lot of things, and so I got super into this one series that I really related to. I guess I had an edgy phase where I just hated everyone around me and wanted to be by myself. Kinda like Yuri. Sorry. That's completely wrong, so... It's still cool that you both really found your thing. They're almost like opposites, but it sounds like they helped you through a lot of hard times. You know it. Wow, what the heck? Is that book even bigger than the last one you were reading? It's longer, but not much. Do you think it would go if you stacked up the whole series? Natsuki estimates by holding her hand high above her head, sizing up an imaginary stack. I should get one of those mangas that's like 50 long so that I can say I've read more. Haha. I have the money for that. please. That would hardly count when your books only have a few words per page. Uh-oh. Oh, I thought that was gonna start a whole argument there. I know, I could never actually read boring for me. Yuri shoots a glare at Natsuki. Okay, now the argument's probably gonna start. It's not boring. Chill, I said for me, not for you. I can have my own opinion. I just think it's too convoluted. Sayori? Are those from the floor? Also touching any of my books. But my hands aren't dirty. Just do it. The oils are there even if you can't see them. Fine. Sayori trots out the door and Natsuki follows. Yuri, you look a little upset. What kind of nerve does she have to call my hobby boring? Well, she did correct herself. Hardly. Fine if she thinks it's not for her. I already understand that it's not for everyone. But she knows well how much these mean to me, so how about just leaving me alone instead of needlessly telling me the things you hate about it? I'm sorry, Yuri. You may be right. This won't be the last time people have strong feelings about what they like and don't like. Especially in the literature club. So I should figure out how to mediate discussions to keep them positive and constructive. For the record, I've always the level of creativity in your book, and also your ability to get through quickly. Thank you. Okay, well, this is something that I'll have to think about and revisit. I'm sure I can help Natsuki find some common ground with you. Common ground isn't necessary. I just wish to be respected. That, then. Either when it comes to Natsuki. Trust you, Monica. But I'm skeptical. Okay, everyone. We have a special club meeting today. Now, the Literature Club is a place where we get to share things that we're really passionate about. But that also means we should be mindful of how we respond to each other's feelings. I think we have a chance to turn our differences into positive energy for each other. Aren't you being a little dramatic about this? I just feel like I'm being accused or something. No, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm sorry if I came off that way. But our conversation yesterday made me reflect on the power of language. And I thought it would be a good topic for the Literature Club, don't you think? I'm sure we're going to have differences in opinion a lot, so I need to make sure we're prepared to keep up here in the club. If you say so. Sure. The cool thing about language is that it gives us a lot of different ways to express the same idea or emotion. We have a lot of control over how we want the other person to feel when receiving our thought. This goes for poetry, narratives, casual conversation, basically anything. For example, Sayori, what's your favorite food? Organized by category. Should I start you mean meals? Breakfast? Oh jeez. Okay, how about your favorite fruit? That's easy. Cherries. Really? I always thought cherries tasted nasty. What? Cherries are delicious! Whoa, that's a pretty strong reaction. Well, I just don't understand how somebody could think cherries are nasty. How does it make you feel? I don't know. Sad? See, the reason you had such a strong reaction wasn't just because I don't like cherries, it's because you felt your opinion was under attack. But that's weird, right? Something like taste is completely subjective. But when I say something like, I think cherries taste nasty, I'm using objective language. Sayori's reality that cherry, which is that nasty. Wait, how is that objective when you just said it was only your own opinion? It has to do with the way our brains interpret the words. You're talking about the reality of the cherries, not your feelings about them. Like Sayori. Let's rewind for a second and pretend I tell you that I think cherries are nasty. Good. So, what if instead of that, I said like, I've tried cherries and they're not for me. It's not the kind of flavor I enjoy. Well, that's fine. I'm nasty. Nasty. Okay, so cherries was kind of a weird example, but I think it gets the point across. This time around, instead of talking about the cherries, I just talked about my feelings, and Sayori didn't get defensive. So instead of clashing with each other, it's like we received an invitation to talk about our differences. Yuri, you don't need to take notes. I'm not gonna quiz you or anything. I know that. I was just... Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out. You can do whatever you like. But does anyone have any thoughts so far? Yeah, I just feel like I shouldn't have to put all my language through a filter just to protect someone's feelings. Well, you don't have to. The choice is yours on how you want to come across to other people. I'm only suggesting it as a tool to help turn your differences into a positive experience, rather than an argument. Right, Sayori? Hey, Cherry. Oh, come on. Sayori, I actually like cherries. I was just saying that to help demonstrate. What the heck? I've been duped! Gosh. I swear, Sayori's like the best character in the game. Haha, I'm sorry, Sayori. I'll make it up to you later. How about a cherry sundae? Anytime, didn't. Seriously, best. Buying your people's loyalty. How deplorable. Oh, like you would turn down a free sundae, Yuri. You were certainly a fan of those cupcakes I brought in the other week. That was... I mean... I was reading and not keeping track of them. Oh, that's enough. We're getting off topic. You have the gist of it. More relevant to the club. Like manga, right? Let's try to have a productive discussion about our differences in opinion. Yuri, do you want to start? Well, I'd rather not, no. Aw, how come? Well, because I don't see how anything productive can come from that. It's just going to start a fight. No, it'll be fine. That's why I'm here to moderate. Let's just have a calm and rational discussion. Yeah, give me a little more credit. I'm not a chip to coddle my feelings. Back to speak your mind. Respectable? Yuri's expression changes at that word. As Monica recalls, being respected was the crux of the matter for Yuri. Well, the point of the exercise isn't exactly like, it's fine. I have nothing against anyone personally. You're entitled to enjoy whatever it is you like. I just prefer more depth and nuance in my reading material. I look for that are imaginative and sophisticated beyond the surface level. Oh, well, that's just a misunderstanding then. I thought you were going to say that manga's for children or something. Like, I don't hear enough of that. But there's plenty of deep manga. I'm not clueless about manga. My own fair share when I was younger. Yes, you never told me. Because I'm past that point in my life, and I'd really prefer not to revisit it. I prefer more mature things that... Oh, there you go. That's where she messed up. Excuse me? Okay, hold on. Can I jump in here? Let's try to keep things subjective. Because if you imply that manga is immature, then aren't you implying that someone is immature for being into it? Well, maybe it's immature to judge people for having different tastes than you. Natsuki. Nobody's immature. I've read Natsuki's manga and Yuri's fantasy, and I love them both in their own way. Okay. It's great that you like it, but I still find it boring. Boring isn't subjective. Okay, it bores me. That's subjective. But, I mean, the thing about... This is ridiculous. Do you see why I didn't want to participate in this? I knew it was just going to make people upset. I'm not upset. Like I said, I don't care what other people think. But I always got the impression that you secretly looked down upon me, so I'm glad my suspicions were confirmed. That's not true at all. You're making assumptions. You can't blame me for getting defensive when nobody ever has the least bit of respect for the things that I'm into. The only thing I look down upon is when people make fun of me for just being myself and trying to mind my own business. What? Have you looked in a mirror? Tell me again about respect after calling all of my interests immature. You can't. Please stop. Please. You don't mean the things you're saying right now. Let's just be friends. I didn't mean for this to happen. Well, it did. So please don't to try and solve other people's problems. Okay. Oof. Yuri's piercing words send the club room into a choked silence as she gathers her things. She leaves. Holy crap. I've never heard her sound like that before. She must be so pissed. Well, you weren't very nice either, so... I was just saying. How did this happen? It's my fault. Yuri wasn't wrong. I shouldn't have tried to moderate a conflict when I know how bad I am at dealing with conflicts. It was a really stupid thing for me to do. It's nobody's stupid. Nice person. Nobody would have expected this. But I guess we're sensitive about the things we really love. Honestly, she kind of brought it upon herself. Like I said, I don't care if she looked down on people for it. That's the point I was trying to make in the first place. It's not about sugarcoating things. It's about just recognizing and understanding our differences. Here's the thing about that. Yuri actually looks down on me. It has nothing to do word choice or anything like that. But I've not just talk to each other, right? I mean, Yuri isn't like that. She's a lot sweeter than you're giving her credit for. I'm sure she'll be reflecting on this. I actually think everyone should. It'll be fine. I'll figure something out. Wow. That instantly. I'm just setting myself up to cause more problems. This wasn't your fault, Monica. You don't have to beat yourself up over it. If you ask me, it's good that the truth finally came out. Because I can just move on now. It's fine, I promise. Let's just get our mind off this, okay? Opportunity to read some manga. Having to worry about feeding Yuri's stupidity complex. Don't be mean. I'll talk, read manga, or whatever you want. Sorry. Bitter. Everything will be okay. I mean, I don't have the answers, but I at least know that we're all good people and don't want to hurt each other. This will be a learning experience. Monica said that, but her uneasiness is given how much she has to force the real tone in her voice. This was bound to happen eventually. Natsuki and Yuri have always engaged with each other, the least out of anyone, and this is the reason. As Sayori and Natsuki proceed to distract themselves with manga, eyes to herself, unable to shake her worried thoughts. And that's probably why they have the Natsuki and Yuri story for the end, because they do interact the least, and it's probably the last thing that they thought should happen for the timeline of the game. Will the club really just have to come to terms with the fact that some memories will be incompatible with each other? Monica doesn't want to admit that, and she doesn't either. But for once, a solution doesn't seem to be in sight. And that's the end of part 1. We got more music, apparently. And once again, I'm just going to kind of quickly scroll through this, and if you guys see a different one, then there you go. But I don't see anything new, because, again, there's so many, and they don't have the little bubbles. So, and let's go ahead and hop right into Reflection Part 2. A new day arrives. Sayori arrives at the club room earlier than usual. That is, not late. As she enters, it appears to be empty still. So she sits down at a desk and pulls out a sheet of paper, primed to jot down her thoughts. Sayori has made a habit of scribbling her thoughts and feelings onto paper whenever possible, as it tends to serve as her best inspiration for poetry. My heart feels vacant because the ship sailed away. Yo! Yo! Expect that to come out of Natsuki's mouth. Yeah! Natsuki? Natsuki pokes her head out from behind the closet door. Haha, sorry, didn't mean to scare you. But it would have been a lot more awkward if I didn't say anything. I doubt you wanted me listening in on your poetry thing. Yeah. Thanks for realizing that. Should I let you finish up then? Oh, no, it wasn't. I mean, I just do it whenever it's convenient. You're not interrupting. Where's Monica, by the way? Oh, she's out in the hallway. Huh? Well, in case she runs into Yuri. Sometimes Yuri is too nervous to come into the club room by herself, so... Oh. Geez, does Yuri really let things bother her for that long? She can't control her feelings. For some people, it's really hard to cope when you get a bad thought in your head. You can distract yourself for a while. As soon as it's just you and your thoughts, it comes back. You know, I think that's why one friend tries to leave alone. Because if they're alone, then they kind of have to deal with all their past trauma and their terrible thoughts, all that. Why they constantly seek relationships, even when they shouldn't. So that kind of makes sense. I'm about to ask about that. Let's see if they agree. I just normal. A lot easier to happen if we all just ignore it and move on. No, that's not true. That's not true. You gotta talk it through and move past it. You can't just ignore it, move through it. You can't go around it, you gotta go through it. Bridge. If there's an obstacle bridge and you have to get to the other side, what do? You go through it. You don't go around it because there ain't no around it because there's basically a giant cliff. So yeah. I don't want to be bothered by this. It's so stupid. Her opinion of me doesn't matter anyway. Besides, it makes me feel really guilty. Thanks. It doesn't make you weak. Let's figure this out together. Fine. Only because you're good at this stuff. Let's try to come up with a happy scene. Maybe that will help us understand where your bad feelings are coming from. Well, I was happy the way things were, before we had to have that conversation yesterday. What part of the conversation made you upset? Was it Yuri being mean about the manga? I doubt it, because my friends and other people make fun of it all the time, but I just brush it off and them. But something about it got to me this time, and I hate that I'm letting that happen. Is it because it came from Yuri? No, why would that matter? I mean, well, maybe. I hate that she thinks she's so much better than me, just because she likes to pretend to be all sophisticated. Yeah, that's what it is. Other people decide that they don't like me, or manga, or whatever. Yuri acts like she's too good to even give it a chance. I'm sorry. Everyone deserves a chance. Yeah, exactly. Would you give Yuri's books a chance? Ha! After this, obviously not. What about before this? Well, I wouldn't until I got bored, which wouldn't take very long. But if you actually keep an open mind, then it's not hard to realize that a story can be deep and meaningful without being needlessly complicated. I see. But, you know, I like Yuri's books. Yeah, but you like manga more, right? Sayori shakes her head. I like them both. I like them in different ways, but I like them both. I mean, the manga, it's really honest and fun and easy to just let go with. And the fantasy has a lot to interpret and uncover, and it's really reward quiet time together with it. But the most important thing is that both the manga and the fantasy are true to themselves. So, I love them both. And I think there's room for both of them to be in this together. And I just feel like, maybe they have more in common than you would think. How do you get along with everyone so well? I always get into fights with people. First it was with Monica when I was new to the club. And then it was you. Now it's Yuri. Oh, that person's a jerk, and if they just realized they could at least get along. Everybody else has this problem. I just keep running away from the reality that everybody's just a jerk to me because nobody likes me. And I don't know why. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I hate it. Natsuki. Sayori puts a comforting hand on Natsuki's shoulder. You're a wonderful person. You deserve to be as much as everyone else. Different ways I'd like to communicate, you know? And sometimes that makes it harder for us to understand each other. I think that sometimes we get lucky and we make friends who are good at the same kinds of communication. And it feels like you magically connect. But other times, are really nice, and to misunderstand each other, or to get the communication wrong. It's something that Yuri struggles a lot with, too. It can be really hard. It takes a lot of, reflection and self-awareness. And vulnerability. I'm bad at that one. Vulnerability. I always have to be the strongest. Interview. Well, it sounds stupid, but I'm really used to people being mean to me. And I guess my grades, or even stupid things, like if my room isn't clean. So what am I going to do? Cry about it? If I let myself get upset, then it's just letting them win. I'm better than that. I'm better than all of them. So, things always have to be everyone else's fault. It feels like if something goes wrong, and there's even a tiny hint that it'd be my fault, then I just get really angry, and I find ways to blame everything else instead. I feel like that's my friend, again. Do you see yourself as better than Yuri? If I said that, then I would just sound really full of myself. No, our thoughts and our feelings are two different things. Even if we don't like our feelings, we have to understand them if we want to learn more about themselves. If we want to learn more about themselves, shouldn't that be if we want to learn more about ourselves? I don't know. That's a part of vulnerability, you know? Accepting that we have feelings that we don't like. I hate that. My feelings make me a bad person. Because my feelings just want to tell me that I'm so much better than her. That she's a judgmental know-it-all who's stuck in her edgy phase, and that I'm just way above that garbage. But I'm terrible for feeling that way. You're not terrible. You are not your feelings. But not your feelings. To yourself, out loud. Fine. I am not my feelings. The way that I like to picture it is that those feelings are like your roommate. You live in the same house and you gotta see each other every day. And even if you can ignore each other most of the time, you're gonna run into each other every now and then, and it's gonna make you feel like poop. So the other option, you can and learn from each other, and maybe even help each other change for the better. Does that help you understand? How do you know so much about this stuff? I just have a roommate that can be really hard to... called depression. Depression? But you're like the happiest person I know. See, that's where people get confused. Depression and happiness aren't necessarily opposites. Like, depression can come from pretty much anywhere. I mean, like, yeah, it makes you sad when you have the depression suddenly hit you. But you could be happy and all of a sudden, bam, depression. You could be angry and all of a sudden, bam, depression. You could literally just be sitting there doing nothing, not even thinking about anything. Suddenly, bam, depression, and you're sad. And it's not even really sadness. I think it's more than that, but sad, I think, is probably the closest word we get to describing it. But just happy doesn't mean I'm not depressed. Look at Robin Williams, for God's sake. That man was one of the funniest freaking people we ever knew. He made everybody smile. He seemed to be so happy. And then he committed suicide. It doesn't matter how happy you are on the out. It doesn't matter how happy somebody looks on the outside. You never know what's going on inside. They could be putting on a face and do. Like, necessarily depressed people put on a face that they choose. Some people put on happiness and they're not even remotely happy. People put on a face of anger and they're not even really angry. You know, they're just trying to either push people out, or they're trying to say, well, they're not gonna let them waste them and not like them first. That's more insecurity talking, and I feel like that's everybody. So, yeah, just because Sayori is the happiest nose doesn't necessarily mean that she's not depressed. Which, of course, we all know that now. I am not my feelings. I want to be a good person like you. Aw, you little sweetheart. We're all good people. You and Yuri and Mon. I think Yuri will avenge you. Natsuki remains silent, feeling a little overwhelmed. Despite Sayori's kind reassurance, a complicated mixture of pain and sadness seems to fill her, as though flowing from a wound inside her. Was it a result of her vulnerability? No, it wasn't as though she was inflicted a wound after becoming vulnerable. Though she began to rediscover a wound, one that simply wasn't left alone any longer. Background? I think it is. Yuri, what are you doing all the way over here? I was looking for you. Please don't yell at me. Oh, I'm not going to yell at you. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. It was unfair of me to put everyone on the spot like that. Next time, I won't just try to jump in and solve everyone's problems. I guess it's a bad habit of mine. You're not mad at me? I thought you were the one mad at me. I was so awful yesterday. Yuri curls up, recalling the details of the argument. I can't even have a normal conversation without saying something wrong and making everyone upset. Hold on, that's not what happened at all. Let's talk about this, okay? Yuri pauses for a second, then manages a nod. Monika takes a seat next to her on the staircase. I'm having a lot of negative thought patterns and I can't get away from them. What kinds of negative thought patterns? Like, everyone hates me. Especially Natsuki. Oh, that's terrible. I don't think Natsuki hates you. How do you know? Well, because Monika thinks back to the time that she herself found herself in an altercation with Natsuki. I feel like that's probably too many herselves in that sentence. It probably could have just been Monika thinks back to the time that she found herself in an altercation. But whatever. And how a display of maturity from Monika was enough for Natsuki to reevaluate her own feelings as well. I think Natsuki is just naturally defensive. I think she acts mean when she feels the need to protect herself. But you know, she's really not a bad person. In fact, I think she can be really thoughtful and considerate. She just... Well, I guess the way it works is that she wants to receive some degree of kindness first before she feels comfortable returning it. Oh. But that means the burden is on me. And I don't know how to say things that make people like me. Every time I open my mouth, I just... Yuri shakes her head at herself and tugs on her hair. It's okay, Yuri. You don't need to beat yourself up. I think anyone would like you if they had the chance to get to know you. Well, unfortunately, the opposite is. That's why I'm not talkative anymore in the first place. Everyone used to think I was weird and talk about me behind my back. That's just what happens when I draw attention to myself. Natsuki even said she found it more respectable when people speak their mind. So I did, and then she hated me anyway. That was enough to confirm my fears. But say you. We've gotten to know you alright. Yuri doesn't seem to have a response. Hey, what do you think of Natsuki? I don't think about her. That's not what I meant, really. I just... I was just wondering if you had her. I do. What is it? Natsuki seems to bring out the worst in me, and I feel really ashamed of it. I like to think of myself as a fairly sophisticated person, so for someone to just treat me like I'm inferior despite my tastes, just the worst kind of coming from someone like her, and it makes me think bad things about her. But everyone else seems to like her, so the only explanation is that it's me who's doing something wrong again, and my feelings about her are wrong, and I'm wrong to get upset over something so childish and inconsequential. No, Yuri, feelings are never wrong. Well, that's the thing. Feelings are never right or wrong, you know? They're just a state of we don't always have control. That doesn't mean they have to control us. I feel like that's something I learned around when I first started the club. We can hate ourselves for feeling a certain way about things. We can, just acknowledge that they exist and try to understand them better. I could never be mad at you just for feeling a certain way. It's about how you handle them. And I think working through feelings is a great opportunity for teamwork. Yuri wears a dejected expression. You make it sound so easy. You're so mature. People. Listen. Oh, Yuri. I'm far from perfect. But these are learned skills. They didn't come naturally to me either. It's really hard to, reflect on yourself and separate your feelings from your thoughts. I just want to be a good person. Well, I think it takes a good person to get this far. That's not good enough. I want to be able to communicate it to her. Communicate what? How I feel. How it makes me feel frustrated and upset when she's so negative and dismissive of the things that mean so much to me. And how it reminds me of me. Because I know what it's like to feel misunderstood and angry at everyone. I know the defense mechanism. We're people. We're fragile and unstable. But I'm just tired of that getting in the way. I can't stand it when the peace is disturbed like this. Yeah, you can't focus on your reading when the peace is disturbed, right? Because the literature club should be happy for everyone. Monica looks at Yuri in adoration. I feel like Sayori must be rubbing off on me, because I really want to hug you now. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. No, I mean, well, if you wanted to, then I wouldn't really mind, so... Monica pulls Yuri into a short embrace. You're so gentle, and I love when you communicate your feelings. I feel lucky to get to see that, and I'm sure Nell too. I'm going to write her a letter. Oh, a letter? What a great idea. Just because I'm not good at talking, especially under pressure. I always let my feelings get the best of me, and I forget to say all the important things, and I say things I don't mean. Well, I think a letter would be wonderful. Such a nice way to communicate. Yuri's face hardens with determination. People don't naturally gravitate towards me like they do for you and Sayori. My personality just isn't suited for that, and I wouldn't want it to be. But something I've learned is that friendships don't always just magically appear out of thin air. For instance, I never would have seen myself making friends with someone like Sayori. Opposite in a lot of ways. She put so much effort into understanding me so that we can get along. I think it was the same with you. You both gave me a lot of time and patience. And I wonder if if she feels the same way. Natsuki? Yuri nods. I always thought that if I wanted to make more friends, I had to be somebody that I'm not. That there's a type of person or a magical formula I have to follow in order to make someone like me. And that's just like me to think that. Always so occupied with my fail to understand others. Yuri shakes her head. Friendship happens when you think about the other person. When you offer time and effort to understand them and respect them, and trust that they also want to be a good person. That's what I learned through my observations in the literature club. Observations? Monika is caught by surprise. Yuri has always kept to herself so much that it's unusual to hear her suddenly talking about the club like this. But Yuri gently smiles to herself. You always let me listen to your thoughts about people. Sayori too. And it makes me happy because I learn a lot of things. That's so sweet. I had no idea it meant that much to you. Monika never thought much of it, but in the past weeks, Yuri always seemed to be especially attentive when it came to the problems and concerns of others. Always wanting to listen, and learn more about her friends in the club. It's true, Sayori and Monika are naturally more comfortable with other people, and can easily work through situations of conflict. But that doesn't make them better people. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and the capacity to improve. And the first step towards improving oneself is reflection and self-awareness. It's something that Yuri never gave herself enough credit for, but that Monika can realize is an incredible trait. And with that, her confidence in the club is restored. A very shy girl with long, pretty hair is wandering the bustling lunchtime hallways, her fists pressed into her collarbone. Literature Club President's classroom, she stands at the door, glancing all around her before peering inside. Monika is sitting and chatting with a group of unknown friends. Yeah, as expected, this was a bad idea after all. Suddenly, Monika glances toward the door, making the girl panic and duck out of sight. Before she can regain her composure and decide for sure to leave, the classroom door gently opens. Yuri, what a surprise to see you during lunch. Yuri squeaks a response. Please help me. What? Is everything okay? Yuri shakes her. I don't know how to write letters. Haha, thank goodness. I thought there was some kind of emergency. Monika briefly glances over her shoulder at her other friends. Do you want some help? We can go find an empty classroom or something. I feel bad, friends. It's totally fine, I promise. We weren't really doing anything. One sec. Monika trots back into her classroom, says something like, I gotta go, to tell her to her friends, then grabs a pen off her desk before returning to Yuri. Okay, let's find somewhere quiet. Yuri nods and follows Monika as the two of them set off. How are you today? Huh? Me? Well, yes. Sorry, I was just caught off guard. I'm doing well today. Just tired. I never seem to get enough sleep during the week. How come? Oh, I don't know. I think I'm just easily distracted. I get really sucked into things and start neglecting the time. Me too. I do that too. Haha. Hey, this classroom is empty. Let's go in here. After peering inside, Monika opens the classroom door and the two of them enter. Yuri's moment of relaxation ends. She watches as Monika pulls two chairs up to the same desk, then obeys as Monika beckons her to take a seat. She stares down at the empty desk. You nervous? I don't want to do this. We don't have to. We can come up with something else. Yuri shakes her head. It's my chance to do something good. I need to take initiative. Oh gosh, you must be really determined. I know how hard it is to step out of your comfort zone. I'll be sure to encourage you. Yuri Shit. My freaking hand slipped down my leg and ended up hitting the A button. Yuri pushes through her anxiety and grabs a handful of lined paper from her book. Okay. Then she picks up her pen. Here we go. Hey, you're left-handed. That's neat. Yeah. Now I don't have to worry about bumping your arm. Monika playfully rubs her shoulder against Yuri's. I'm just being this. Anyway, how about we start by listing the different things you want to say to her? Yuri thinks. I feel embarrassed all of a sudden. Aw, it's okay. How about some of the things you said to me yesterday? But, never mind. I guess I'll try. Yuri thinks for a moment longer, her tension evident. Then she writes the word reflection. This is about my reflection on our behavior. The key question is why we act like this towards each other. Been able to be friends with Sayuri and Mana. That's me! So, Yuri thinks. I've been able to befriend the two of you because you've taken time to understand my needs and my interests. Mm-hmm. The same with Natsuki too. We is pretty hostile to each other because I was so worried about getting what I want. But she just wanted to be respected more than anything else. Once I stopped making about me, she was able to do. I want to do that. So what kinds I want to do for her? I want to do the same thing I like to receive. I like it when people respond positively to the things I talk about and not just off. I like it when my feelings are taken seriously. And I like when you and Sayori want to be a good person and when I'm not doing a good job at it. Let's write those. Okay. Yuri writes down. I think the thing to remember here is that Natsuki is feeling vulnerable, so we should make sure that the letter puts her first. It's hard when you're feeling hurt, but it never helps to just tell someone all the things that they're doing wrong. I wish that was fully like, I mean, it is, but it isn't, because you still have to be able to tell people what they're doing wrong, but you can't, judge them for it, or you can't even sound like you're judging them for it. You have to try to make sure you're coming off as, well, basically not judge. Hard to do that sometimes, especially if you're texting, because you can't get a tone of voice through text. That's why me and my friends have a lot of discussion. We have a lot of arguments sometimes about how we feel, or how something that the other one does makes them feel, or whenever a friend, it's like, and if they're doing something I don't like, or vice versa, where I'm doing something they don't like, we can't seem to figure out how to convey the tone through text. So either I take it the wrong way or they take it the wrong way. So it is about both. You want to try to be able to still tell somebody what they're doing wrong if it's affecting you and hurting you, but you don't want to do it and make it sound like you're being judgmental. You just want to be like, look, I know you don't mean to do this. I know you don't mean to be like this, but it affects me negatively, and I would appreciate it if you try not to do it so much. Because that's the other thing. You just tell them to quit doing it, because just be something that's part of their life as a whole, or just part of their identity. But they still have to try to respect you enough to not do those kinds of things around you, to you. So no, she's right. You can't just all the things they're doing wrong, but you can't be afraid of doing it at all either. You can't tell them what they're doing wrong because it's gonna hurt their feelings. No, hurt their friggin' feelings if they need to be hurt. Because don't be offensive, insulting, but because your feelings still need to come first. And if you feel like your feelings are being violated by what they're saying or doing, frickin' tell them. That's why I always tell somebody, hey, if I say something that offends you or hurts you in some way, tell me and I won't say it anymore. Because I don't know what is going to be offensive or not. I still get shit online, on the internet, about something that I said that's apparently not PC. I didn't even know the word Eskimo is apparently not PC. And I'm like, wait, now I'm an asshole for saying Eskimo? Why? Apparently it's not PC. I don't know the actual word for it, because I know that people say Inuit, but it's that's just one type of those people. They're Native Americans, but they're the ones that igloos, and stereotypically live in the igloos. They live up in the snowy areas typically. But I don't know if the general is as Inuit. I think there were other kind of tribes, kind of like with the Native Americans, or Potawatomi, the Sioux, the Algonquin. I mean, there was a lot of different tribes, I think is what they were. They were tribes. But I think there was more than just Inuits for them. So I don't know how you generalize them. And you kind of have to sometimes with those kinds of things. Like people is a generalization word. Humans is a generalization word. Tigers is a generalization word, and there's different kinds of tigers. There's Bengal tigers. A generalization word isn't a bad thing. But sometimes culture makes it a bad thing, so therefore you're a bad person for saying a generalizing word. Yeah, I didn't know saying Eskimo was bad, so I was still saying it, and then people were giving me crap for it. I'm like, I didn't know. I mean, now I know, so I don't say. I mean, as an example like this, it's not bad. Because I'm trying to say I can just outright avoid the word and try to explain it. But the point is, like, I don't actually call them that anymore. Because now I know that it's apparently wrong. I don't know the proper, because again, I'm pretty sure there's more than just, but, oh, there is, and fine. But I'm pretty sure there are other, like, tribes of them. So, until I can figure out the proper word, or until they can come up with a proper word, then I will say that. But, I'm not gonna say the other one, because apparently it's offensive. But you have to be able to tell somebody what they're doing wrong sometimes. So, that's my point. Anyway, I think first you have to make sure that you know that they know you're ready to respect them and admit the thing you could do better. Finally, you ask what you would like in return. How does that sound for the structure? It could be 3 paragraphs, one for each of those points. I like that. My thoughts were so disorganized, I had no idea how to come up with any kind of structure. You're so amazing at these things. Ugh. Oh, you've done so much more than I have. You've spent so much time reflecting and being open-minded. That's the hardest thing for anyone to do. All I'm doing is help put it on a piece of paper. So I think you're the amazing one. Ugh, God. Yeah, part of my issue too is I'm getting acid reflux. Oof. Ugh. Monica gives Yuri's hand a quick squeeze. As she lets go, she gets caught by surprise when Yuri curls her fingers to hook Monica's place. For that in silence, save no scratching of Yuri's pen on paper. Yesterday you told me something that I'm thinking about a lot. What was that? The thing about how things aren't right or wrong, and that they're just a state of being we need to come to terms with. It made me think about how a person's behavior isn't always just how they decide to be. It's also made up of their past experiences and their insecurities. Exactly. Like my other friend, again, I'm going to go into, private details, but like my other friend. I think that helps me see other people as actual people, rather than as insignificant side characters who are out to me somehow. Is that how you feel about Natsuki? Yuri nods. But, in reality, everyone is always trying their best, and everyone wants to be happy. Monica looks over at Yuri's paper, but to her surprise, Yuri pulls it in closer, partially with her arm. Haha, I have to be able to read it to help out, you know. It's okay. My thoughts are a lot more organized now. I have to be able to talk to you about it. Now that I'm actually putting it on the paper, I realize I'd really prefer others not to read it. Yuri laughs softly to herself, a rare expression. I'm kind of glad to hear that, actually. I somehow keep finding ways to butt into this whole thing. I've done enough. It's so wonderful talking about this. I mean, I always thought smart, but... Yuri smiles. I'll always be terrible at these things. People are just so incomprehensible to me. I'll never get the hang of being one. Haha. But listening to you so much has really helped me make sense of things. So just don't call it damage. Monica gives Yuri a smile. Can't believe I came to this club looking for fantasy geeks and all I got was friends who value me. Is that a joke? Of course it is. I'm still with you. Sorry. No, I love it. Please never change. As you wish. Yuri glances at the clock. We're almost out of time. Will you be able to finish? Before the end of the day, probably. But I don't want to come to the club the same day that Natsuki reads it. I'm too shy. I can give it to her instead if you'd like. Yuri nods. As long as you promise not to read it. Of course, I promise. Thank you. Yuri exhales and the two stand. I'll message you when it's ready. Monica nods. Good luck. I'm here if you need me. Yuri returns a nod and the two depart. And that is the end of that one. We got some more pictures. So we got the rest of the wallpapers with Yuri. Is there anything else we got from that? Yes, we got this one. And then we should have the last background. Yes, we do. So we have almost everything. 3 keys. And then we still have one more of the promo images. And I think that's it. Yeah. So there's only a few images left. Alright. But yeah, then we just have Self-Love Parts 1 and 2. And then the secret final one that you get after completing Self-Love. So we'll pick that one up in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. For those of you on YouTube, leave a like and comment if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. And ring the bell to be notified of when I upload a new video. For those of you on Twitch, make sure you're following me and catching the streams when I go live. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then.